well drillers will have a list of well drillers in your area. Once we have water, we got to get it on the field. And I think many of us are thinking about solid systems. Solid systems are buried under the ground and then just have risers in most situations that distribute the water. Very commonly used for frost protection, but it allows you to irrigate that single area very efficiently and relatively uniformly. Frost protection takes a lot more water. We need to build water, build ice during that cold part of the day, and we need to cover the whole area that we intend to protect at one time. So a lot of times our pumping systems will be 5 to 8 times larger to do frost protection than for irrigation purposes. That said, as an irrigation system, the same frost protection system has some real weaknesses because you're putting on water very slowly, which makes more evaporation loss in the area. But for some of the more permanent installations, solid set is the way to go. If you like the idea of overhead irrigation, but you don't want to have it in one single location, and when we think about a lot of our production, we want to produce vegetables or produce our high value crop every 3rd year or 4th year on a site. We'd like to have our irrigation equipment to be able to move with us so that it's always on the site where a high value crop is. These solid set systems were the rage of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. A lot of equipment out there, brass impacts with risers coming off of the pipe. You'll see them for sale if you drive through the vegetable areas on semi-loads of this pipe to string out. It's a good way for a lot of smaller farms to get started. And it's a backbone of a lot of systems that are out there. It's a little bit energy intensive and labor intensive as far as equipment that's there. The other side of the spectrum is big gun travelers. Big gun travelers are not terribly efficient, but they tend to be fairly low cost for the amount of coverage. It's a great system if you intend to only irrigate as an insurance policy in the dry years, because you don't have a huge amount of investment sitting around those other years, but you can get it out, and with enough labor and energy, you can cover a lot of area. So there's the MSU industrial hemp variety trials we worked on a few years ago. They had a little traveler there. Our only intention was to use the traveler if we didn't get enough rain to be an average year. So we pulled the system out, used it to make our plot get about the average year's worth of irrigation that's out there. Big gun travelers work on a 10 acre basis, the largest of them. That's going to be 300 feet by 1,320 feet. So a 40 acre field would have 4 runs going across it. So this systems are real common in like the Christmas tree growing area, where we really only need water the 1st and 2nd year of the tree production, or in the years when it's extremely dry and drought likely. The backbone of irrigation in the Michigan and Indiana area is center pivots. About 80% of the irrigation water goes through center pivots. It can be an extremely uniform application. And in our humid areas, remember, we're not the dry western arid west. We're in the humid area. So about 3/4 of our day, we have virtually no loss from that water droplet in the air. So it's an advantage of center pivots in our climate. But remember that coverage is based on the geometry, and you get a lot more for your money when you get big. When you get up to the full size, 1,300 feet, 7 or 8 towers, you're getting the most bang for your bucks as far as dollars. That means it's expensive when we're down with 1 or 2 towers in 10 acre fields. And I'll show you a little bit more about that as we go. Before we move off of center pivots, the one system I do see used a lot in hort production and now in livestock grazing production is these towable single tower center pivots. And what they're doing is you're making about a 10 acre field with one machine, just one tower going around the field and an end boom and an end gun. And then you're moving that to a different location. In hort applications, we tend to put it under the irrigated crops, the crops that really benefit from irrigation, under that center pivot, and then during the winter we tow it to another location. So it may have 3 or 4 locations, and we always have our high dollar crop under the center pivot, and then the other crops in rotation around it. Same thing for the grazing operations that are irrigating. They can move them multiple times within the season and always have the system running on a pasture that is at its optimum stage to take water and provide back increased growth. Here's a chart we do for overhead production. If you notice, the cheapest thing per acre there, based on a survey about a year ago, was 160 acre pivots. And if you looked at the ownership cost plus the operating cost, it was running about $165 an acre. And this is based on 10 years. And at the end of the 10 years, the salvage equipment is sold off. So basically, if I was a banker or a rental company and I wanted to rent you a piece of equipment, I would need and supply the energy to run it. I would need $165 an acre to put one of those center pivots on a full size 160 acre field. And then it goes all the way to the other spectrum. A 40 acre machine is about double that cost. Larger systems are more effective as far as money. As far as